Okay, kind of an interesting way of looking at things here in the Philippines. Now, we all know of Duterte's fear that was that people were even turning themselves in. It was a big deal, a very big deal. Some countries have adopted for example, with marijuana usage, they adopted to allow it, but I'm pretty sure it's heavily taxed. I'm going to quote something here that is very interesting, worthwhile reading, and my own thoughts on this. I think the Philippines is a Republican utopia. No divorce, no middle class. The vast majority are scratching for every peso. Low taxes resulting in very limited infrastructure, and so on. So I'm surprised that the alcohol is encouraged, while a joint could result in imprisonment. I guess we called, say, I don't know, let's say tobacco maybe should be labeled as an illegal drug because it could do bodily harm, but it is heavily taxed. Nicotine is a drug. You can get hooked and it's addictive very easily. So, the laws here in the Philippines, well, it is true. I mean, I'll give you an example. We don't even taxes on the house. It's a fairly good sized house. Maybe seven or eight thousand dollars pesos a year. That's cheaper than shit. Now, I'm not encouraging them to raise the taxes, but there's two things really. If they raise the taxes, maybe there would be more money for, say, infrastructure in this country to get sidewalks done, to get proper draining systems in the street, to eradicate what we know is very common is flooding here whenever there's a heavy rain. The Philippines is behind the times, but it doesn't mean it has to be. And there really isn't, if you think about it, much of a middle class here at all. It almost comes to the point, what the Republicans are trying to do. They want to eradicate the middle class, and you're either poor or you're rich, basically. You're doing good or you're doing shitty, and it actually creates more power for a government to take control of your life. There's no doubt about that. Now, we're not going to go on to be political as far as Republicans and Democrats and all that shit. I'm really neither one, and maybe people know me as a Democrat, but basically, that's changed too. I mean, it's all about money no matter what. But here in the Philippines, it is about money, like anywhere else. It's about money. So many poor people that they want to rise above it all. And then there's always a lot of talk in here about Filipinos wanting to be with a guy that has a little something to scratch together, and something when you really think about it, you can't blame them. Um, there's really no way of getting above it all here in the Philippines as a Filipino in this country because the wages are so low. And that's why we have so many people basically that are working overseas. And even so, people will use and abuse you. Figure, well, you're a Filipina and you're used to working for low wages. So again, they're going to be taken advantage of. Again, they'll make more money by working overseas, but I don't think they're going to make as much money as they would hope to make because they've been sort of stereotyped. Filipinos work for cheap, or they'll say that Mexicans work for cheap, and so forth. And some people argument, well, that the Mexicans are taking away American jobs and so forth. So the way I look at in this country is perhaps taxation should be looked at. If the money is going to go to the right place, that's the key element of it. You could raise taxes and the infrastructure would be better, getting things done and modernized, better internet, better roads, better sidewalks in most places don't have any, better drainage systems for the streets out here, you know, perhaps higher taxes. But the problem with that, it's not just affecting, well, the rich have the money to pay the higher taxes, but unfortunately, the poor people really don't. So it's kind of a non-win situation, really, when you think about it. And I just don't think it's a win-win. But then people talk about things like corruption and everything else, and there's corruption in every country. In the Philippines, there's really no different. There's corruption here, Mexico, everywhere. I mean, the United States, there's a lot of corruption. So where these funds go that were meant for certain projects, for roads, for this, for that, well, that happens in America too. You know, funds going where they're not supposed to go, you know, deep pockets for politicians. That's pretty much, you know, everywhere. It might be worse in some countries than others, but somebody kind of brought up a good point. And alcohol, kind of a key subject here because alcohol, well, it is a drug, and it can affect your behavior, your moods, and some people who can't take the alcohol can get very violent. People get behind the vehicle, whether it's a motorcycle or a car, a truck, or a bus, and kill other people besides killing themselves. But yet alcohol out here is not frowned on. People celebrate drinking alcohol, and you have the right to drink alcohol, and you have a right to smoke cigarettes. Well, in most places you do. A lot of people, a lot of towns out here say we don't want you smoking in the street. Okay, so you got to hide like a criminal, and I went through that in Baguio, and that was always a funny story because, you know, you feel like a criminal. Some towns are very strict with things like that. Now, Baguio has laws, and chances are they probably would fine you. But I don't drink, fortunately, and unfortunately, I do smoke. But as I shared that story before, I was in Baguio, and they don't sell cigarettes there. So you go to the next town, you can always get cigarettes. Or if you're not going to the next town, and you run out and you decide, well, I need to buy more. You literally, not figuratively, have to basically go in the dark alleys of towns and say, you got any cigarettes? Like you're a goddamn criminal. And I felt that way to some young guys. You know, they get into everything. They know where to get cigarettes. They went to a house across the street and they got me a pack. What kind do you want? You know, and you tell them what you want. Next thing you got, of course, a little surcharge on there for getting you the cigarettes. But you have to ask yourself, does any government have the right to tell you what to do with your body? No, I just talked about it. Only about $7,000 or $8,000 not dollars, pesos a year. That's all it is. I just mentioned that actually. So I was quoting somebody, you know, and I'm going to read this quote again for anybody who just came in. And this is not my wording, but I agree with it. And actually, I've seen this on somebody else's show when they were kind of commenting on what this guy was talking about. And but I'm going to quote it yet one more time here about this. I think it's, you know, it's pretty well said. And what was said here is that I think the Philippines is a Republican utopia. No divorce, no middle class. The vast majority are scratching for every peso. Low taxes resulting in very limited infrastructure, and so on. So I'm surprised that alcohol is encouraged while a joint, you want to smoke a joint, could result in, you know, getting imprisonment. It's an herb, right? I guess, you know, we could say that, you know, tobacco should be labeled as an illegal drug because it can be do bodily harm. Hey, but I believe it's heavily taxed. I see the prices going up all the time. You know, nicotine's a drug. You can get hooked on it, and you can get addicted very easily on it. Okay, let's face the reality, and I'm certainly one of them. So how do you really look at all this? What do you make of all this? I mean, with the Philippines actually have more money for infrastructure and so forth that they just tax the shit out of you. But unfortunately, that hits the poor people too. They're barely getting by. A lot of them barely getting by. And is there a solution to all this? I couldn't tell you. I'm not an economist or anything like that. But some people think it's wrong that, well, people have been shot and killed over, maybe they tried some kind of illegal drug out here for the first time, and they got caught up in this big raid and they got shot and killed in front of their family. It's a controversial topic on here, or would be a controversial topic. But Duterte's crime on drugs, was an intense thing where thousands of people actually turned themselves in, figuring that maybe they knew that the undercover people knew that they were either selling or using drugs. There might have been some people that were not deeply into this. They were broke, and they probably didn't think in their minds that, I'm harming other people, and they were just thinking of, I need to survive, I need to buy rice for the family, I got to do this. No matter what, I'm not making excuses for them, okay? I don't, I wouldn't want to promote drugs, and believe me, I know I had a brother that was really into it. And I know what he went through, but I can speak from the experience of having a family member that was very heavily into, in his past anyway, different types of drugs. It didn't do him any good. Eventually he died anyway from everything that he was involved with: heavy drinking, sugar, alcohol, and prior to that he was into drugs. But they say that, well, marijuana is, it's an herb. It's a freaking plant. But then, if you think about it, cocaine, for example, is derivative from a plant. Okay, so why is that illegal? And then there's this, theoretical and philosophical thing that, why can't you do with your body what you want? Well, the problem is with any country, if it's not taxed, it's going to be illegal. I mean, if the government can't make money off of your habit, okay, then they could deem something to be illegal. And I'm actually very surprised that smoking, okay, it runs up hospital costs. It puts a lot of Filipinos in dire straits with health conditions, anybody really, expenses. So, again, it's from a plant. So you might think, well, it gives anybody the right to say, hey man, I'm taking some kind of a drug it's derived from a plant. So what's wrong with that? Then there's a number of people in the world who feel that, what I do with my body is my business. Nobody else's. Whether somebody exercises or not and drops of a heart attack, if they don't, they don't want to stay in shape, or they, there should be a law against maybe obesity. Obesity runs up hospital bills in the world, but the difference here is that, well, it ain't like you're going to walk into the emergency room in America. They will take you in and treat you, and they'll bill you. Here, as you know, they're not going to treat you at all. They might give you a little triage, but they're not going to treat you at all unless you got money to pay for everything. You can get away with that in the United States. So you're fucked, is what it really comes down to, But this world is getting very obese, and we were going in a very healthy direction for a while. It really started with the fast food joints. That means it's been going back a long, long time. Then more fast food places came in, and more, and people really caught on to that. Maybe people who led a very busy life, did not have a chance to cook or whatever. It was on the road. It's more convenient to go into a fast food place. And our population around the world, especially America, has been getting extremely obese. I've seen the difference in many places, and maybe that should be against the law too. But everything should be against the law. Getting fat should be against the law if you want to really get down and dirty on it. Stuffing your mouth with high caloric, fatty cholesterol foods, maybe that should be against the law and everybody would be slim and trim. But in a lot of countries, well, now have eased laws on marijuana usage, and but these places are taxed the shit out of. I'll promise you that. It's a way of the government just giving in and not label these people as a recreational drug that's derived from a plant. But then again, there are many drugs that come from a plant. And a lot of people say that marijuana helps people. I've never really got into it. I know what it's like to smoke marijuana. I've done it, but it was something I never got into. Drug, consider that to be an alcohol. Cigarette, tobacco could be an alcohol. Could be considered to be a drug. So, yeah, the vet tax is expensive tax. Yeah, yeah. According to how you want to look at this, everything seems topsy-turvy, and it's just imbalanced. You know, maybe we need a gyroscope for just about everything. The gyroscope of society to keep things balanced and upright and whatnot, so you're not walking upside down. But I don't make the laws in this country. Unfortunately, I'm not involved in illicit drug activity of any sort, but still, and then you think about, if you want to take this a little bit further, for those maybe with cancer, things like that, and I'm not like 125% sure, but I'm pretty sure they will give you this in the hospital if you can afford to be in a hospital. It's a two-part thing on this. Okay. Outside of the hospital, they may give you limited drugs to ease your pain, and you have to suffer. There's a lot of suffering that goes on right here in the Philippines. It's not always met by the eye, but there's a lot of suffering going on with people with illnesses, with that, a lot of pain. And they're going to maybe give you tramadol or something, which actually is a derivative of an opiate, but it's very weak and doesn't work very well. Hospitals do offer stronger drugs, of course, morphine and what's the other one? The other street drug they're doing now, which was given to me when I had the kidney stone pain. Okay, but getting it on the streets, and now in America, I saw this happening, where people had so much pain that they became addicted to it, and they didn't really care about the addiction. They didn't really care about it. All they cared about was controlling their pain. As a result, of course, they got addicted to it. And I've seen a local clinic, if I had something I need to test or I had something wrong, whatever, feeling sick, I go to the clinic, and the door was busted in. Somebody that really got pissed off at the clinic because the doctor decided that we're not going to give you any of this. Big use was hydrocodone, oxycodone, all that shit that could be heavy-duty pain relievers. And maybe these people really did need it, okay, but unfortunately it became a habit. But it got to a point where doctors, and that's why people were getting pissed off, enough to cause damage on a clinic structure. People get mad if the doctor took their prescription away, and they needed it. I mean, it wasn't just a habit. They needed it for their pain. It was a real deal. This was not, I'm just taking it as a recreational drug. People would sell it. I know that for a fact that people were selling their pain medications all over Hawaii when I lived there, all over Seattle when I lived there. They take some for themselves to take care of their habit and their needs, and for their pain, rightfully. But they would also be selling it, and that's what they did wrong. They'd get in trouble. It was instant 10 years, I think, in Hawaii, if you were caught with illegal drugs, like hydrocodone, anything like that. But yeah, I think that's a definite 10 years they'd give you. But then, there's like a need, a want, it'd be necessary to have a certain drug, but they have made at higher positions in government decisions with the DEA and other agencies to put a control on certain substances that would actually help somebody. Imagine being in a very painful type of cancer, like bone cancer or brain or something. And the only way you can get this drug, like this is like in the Philippines here, is if you're in the hospital as an inpatient. Um, I'm not sure as an outpatient, you'd have to still go to the hospital to receive it. You have to have a record that you have this disease or some kind of debilitating pain ongoing that's probably going to happen for the rest of your life. They will administer these drugs to you, pill form, needle, whatever it might be, intravenous or whatever, while you're actually in the hospital. But there might be very limited resources or willingness for a hospital to issue X amount of pills or something that you could take home because everybody's afraid that you're going to be selling it on the streets. Unfortunately, that does happen. But it still comes down to one thing, that you have a right to your body. And that a lot of people will fear it's unfair to say, you can't tell me what to do with my body. If it's going to hurt you, whether it's alcohol, whether it's tobacco, whether you need some weed to help nauseousness or even help your cancer, or cope with certain things that, it's supposed to help with. And it's very controversial when it does anything, but a lot of people believe that it does. So, in other words, you're not in control of your body anymore, and the government is telling you that I can't do this. And the only way we're going to give it to you if you become an inpatient at a hospital, but then guess what? Unless you have insurance, you can't afford to be an inpatient at the hospital for a while, or an outpatient, because it takes money. And also, drugs of this nature are very expensive. It's a no-win situation for a lot of people, and it's really sad. It's a no-win situation. According to how you want to look at it, so why not tax cigarettes a lot more, tax alcohol a lot more, and I believe they are. I've seen the prices going up. I don't know about liquor. I don't drink, but I know on cigarettes, I came here. When I did, I don't know, it was about 50 pesos. Now it's averaging 180 to 200. That's amazing. But if you need something, you're going to spend the money, no matter how much it costs. But then it will come to a point that it's unfortunate it has to take that long for you to quit a certain habit. But where something becomes so expensive, if you go into states and other countries, it's not uncommon for a pack of cigarettes, as an example, to go anywhere from 10 to 25 bucks in some places. Imagine if you had a couple of pack a day habit or something, you had to pay 20 to 25 bucks for cigarettes. And I met somebody who worked in a 7-Eleven in Hawaii. It was a gal. And she said basically, when I bought cigarettes, oh shit, they went up, huh? How do anybody afford this? You know? And she said, well, yeah. She goes, me and my husband, we both smoke. I said, really, you both smoke? And she says, I'm taking this job because it's basically paying for our cigarettes. So there was no gain financially to buy other things. It was just for cigarettes. And that was kind of sad that their whole salary, hers, would have to go into supporting their habit. And that's what happens with a lot of drug addicts of all kinds, that their money is going to go into their drug. And you might see people, the drugs do it to them, or the lack of having enough nutrition is due it to them. They look very weak and they're very thin, and do not really taking care of themselves nutrition wise. And it's like a mad vicious cycle that goes on. Yeah. $20, it's in Chicago. Is it like the major brands, or is it generic brands or something? Like if you went from Marlboro, Winston, what's all the favorite ones that are big time? I've heard more in some other countries and places. So imagine if you developed a habit and you smoked a pack or more a day, how would you do it? Well, you'd have to quit. You have to quit. And sometimes it would get to that point where you will have to quit because you just can't survive on that anymore. That's like if you're renting out here, you're an expat, and the landlords just keep on raising rent. Well, do you understand why Philippines and countries like Thailand, examples as such, they're not going to allow foreigners to come in here and own property other than condos? Same here in the Philippines, because that's going to create a situation to make the local people, to make it to the local people unaffordable to live, to rent, because foreigners are going to come in, and you know what they're going to do if they're able to own a property straight out, other than a condo or leasing land. It would allow developers to come into these countries and develop a lot of land, a lot of development, and they're going to put their high prices on there, and they're going to outprice the locals from being able to afford to rent an apartment or condo or to buy a house. You know damn well that's going to happen. Greedy foreigners will come in this country and Thailand and other places. That's why they have these laws that a foreigner cannot own. It's one of the reasons that a foreigner cannot own a house outright anyway. They could. I mean, my name is on here, but when it comes to my girlfriend wanting to sell the house, she can make that decision. Or we can make it together, but she doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. She will always own the land, and there's nothing you can do about that. You, sir, can lease land, 25 years, whatever your deal is. You could lease land, but you're never going to own the land. Okay. So you can imagine foreigners coming into here, and they're going to develop the shit out of the country. And the local Filipinos are barely surviving as it is, many of them. And they cannot afford to pay a high rent. They'd be on the streets. So there has to be some kind of control on that. I have to say that I actually understand where they're going with this. Yeah. Feel like a cup of coffee and a Vicodin. Good for you. Well, there are certain drugs that they should make legal, okay? Because they actually do help people. And I said a lot of drugs are derived from plant sources, Opium, it's a plant, and marijuana is a plant, and whatever other drugs that are actually created through nature, through natural vegetation and so forth, different types of plants. Okay, it's not always man-made in the labs. They can do that, but a lot of stuff comes from nature. But if the FDA, the Drug Administration, can't make any money on something, then they're not going to endorse it. In fact, they'll fight anyone that's trying to make a buck over what a lot of governments would consider to be a drug. If the big pharma doesn't have their hands in something, okay, for example, they don't have their hands in a lot of natural products, okay, they don't have their hands in that. And they've tried, but even though they make products out of nature and different plants, it's a little bit different. Big pharma, if they can't make money on something, they're not going to sell it. Henceforth, we could look at a lot of street drugs, here's the thing. People can't get always a hold of the drugs that they need, okay? And yeah, there are many addicts, but it's one of these situations. What is the worst of the two evils? That, for example, if you need pain control, okay, that if you stop taking that drug, then you won't be addicted to it. What's the worst of two evils? And what you have to go through with that. And then having to take that drug every day, because you do need it, for example, pain, okay, but you have to pay the price for it, though. Now, what's happened to a lot of people, at least I can speak for in the United States, is that it's very topsy-turvy because here's what I seen happening in Hawaii. Okay, so if the clinic is not willing to give pain meds to somebody who needs it, and they're going to deem them to be, no, no, you did a piss test, I don't see enough in there, or I don't see any of that drug in there. All right, maybe the person was selling it, that would be illegal. Okay, but here's the thing too. What happens is when you can't get the drugs from a clinic, you're going to have to get it off the street. So by clinics and other institutions not cooperating and giving people the meds that they need, it's going to create more crime in the streets, illegal drug activity, and you're going to pay through your nose for a drug that you need. I mean, you would pay $50 for a pack of cigarettes if you really needed it. Just imagine heavy drugs, you know, cocaine, you know, pain relievers, you know, pharmaceuticals. Imagine if they were like diamonds or gold, it's scarce, right? So you're going to pay a lot of money for something that's scarce, a beautiful blue emerald, any kind of a gem that we put a value on. And the scarcity of it is going to make the price worth a lot of money. Same as a pack of cigarettes. A lot of people who smoke are willing to pay the price of their habit. The question is, how far will they go till they say, well, it's pricing me out of house and home. Some people will just quit, because you're better off anyway. But I think a lot of street drugs, and people have to get street drugs. Oh, no, I'm not. Well, you really want me to eat in here? Okay, considering. All right. Oh, you did my lentil thing. Since I had it out soaking, okay. Yeah, this dinner, lentils with carrots and chicken in there. That's what I'm eating. There we go. Well, think about what I said. If you want your drug, you're going to get it. The government should just make certain drugs legal. Because the government will find a way to profit off it. They'll say, okay, look, you can do whatever you want to do with your body. Go screw yourself. But we want to profit off your habit. Well, henceforth, cigarettes, booze, but why don't they allow people, there wouldn't be as much crime. You know, wouldn't be the drug lords and everything going on. There wouldn't be all crime if everything was legal. In other words, let people do whatever the hell they want with their body. And even if you want to sell your body, it'd be your thing. I mean, prostitution's been going on since the beginning of time, really, you know. Let's see. Yes, we carry the same problems as Vicodin. People who don't need drugs don't believe they can help. And I'll go until I die, basically. I don't have the option to just quit everything. Sometimes you don't. And you will get it illegally if you had to. I would imagine you would. Just that I'd be willing to pay the price. It's just a very small example I talked about when I was in Baguio, and there's no stores in town that sell cigarettes, not even 7-Eleven, believe it or not. I didn't know that when I got there. But I realized until we just got out of town, I knew I could buy it. But it was in the interim when I ran out. Then I realized, that's right. Went to every store. Oh, really? You don't sell them? Okay. Bummer. Excuse the pun. Have to get it elsewhere. So, like a freaking criminal, hiding in the alleys. It's like a typical fucking drug scene, you know? It's like, hey man, you know where I can get a pack of cigarettes? You had to talk low and some dark corner of the side of a street. And I did that. And I absolutely did that. I did it. Not far from the hotel I was staying. I realized I was running out. I pretty much figured out you're not going to buy cigarettes in the town. But everybody had a resource to make extra money. So let's say the cigarette pack cost you normally about, I don't know, this could come up at any price, say 100 pesos. They'd sell it to you for 150 pesos to make money. It's very easy to go to the next town and buy cigarettes and have it in your home. Then when you come across a local or a foreigner that's looking for cigarettes, they're a place to go. They make a little profit. The guy gets his smokes or whatever. And everybody's happy. Heim says drug addicts know what it is like to be revealed in life, and it makes them complicated like people couldn't imagine. Yeah. Oh, cigarette trafficking is big business. It really is. Oh, yeah. You can make a lot of money on that. But I guess my point is, on this whole show, is that it's a number of things, really. People shouldn't be able to tell you what you can and cannot do with your own body. If you want to sell your body, if you want to use a certain drug that can actually help you, whether you're in pain or whatever the ailment you have, if it helps, you know, most things are a band-aid and not generally curative. But if you need something, you need it. You may not want to take something, but you have to ask yourself the question. And I know this. Does it help you with such and such, or does it not help you? Is it better to take it than to not take it? And can you get it? Is it available by prescription? Ma'am, what do you have to do to get it? And how much could it cost? You know, medicines are expensive here in the Philippines. Imagine you come from a poor family and you really need certain medications. Because you need to allocate a certain amount of money for food and rent, shelter, and all that. Where are you going to make the choice? Are you going to deprive your family of food and shelter? Chances are you're not going to do that. So you might have to do something illegal, perhaps, to get that drug of choice. But still, no matter what, it's going to cost you money. I don't know. It's one of those situations that you can't get out of. Not really. Well, there's another thing, too. That these clinics and so forth are profiteering like crazy. And they're giving out. I've seen a big business shut down in Hawaii. He had a clinic in Big Island, and he had a clinic in Maui. And he was 100% Hawaiian, this guy. He was a huge guy, doctor, real doctor. And on the days he was going to be in Hawaii, downtown Hilo, people would be lined up at his door, waiting for him to open up. It was mostly for pain meds. Pain meds. And this guy gave them out. It wasn't that he gave them out so freely. I think was the case on here. I think there was certain proof you had to have and show what's wrong with you. I think he did abide by that. But then he'd make it a little bit too easy. And he'd continue to give these people these drugs. Of course, they got addicted on it. Then they need more. Maybe the tolerance level, increased, and whatever milligrams that they were taking at the time did okay, but then the body required them to take more. But then maybe the clinic or doctor, whatever, would say, well, no, we can't give you more than, I don't know, 10 milligrams, 15 milligrams, whatever the milligrams on there were.
You want more?
Well, maybe a little while. I'm still a little bit hungry, but give my stomach a little rest on it. I'll have a little bit more lentils in a little bit, thank you. Look, I've seen this in Seattle, I've seen this in Hawaii. And my brother used to go to these clinics too. Besides all these people I've seen it there. Because sometimes I have to drive them. And I witnessed it, the insanity of all this. I witnessed it. It's just pure insanity. It seemed that way. Just pure insanity. You got to get your drug of choice. But part of the topic here was, I think I've been trying to get through, is that, is it right for the government or anybody to tell you what you can and cannot put into your body? They allow all these companies to put all these goddamn preservatives and crap and food coloring and BHT, all kinds of shit in your foods, and they don't regulate that. They don't regulate that. That could cause harm to you, but they don't regulate that. But yet they're going to regulate some other stuff. You could choose to smoke or not to smoke. You could choose to drink or not to drink, and that's a personal choice you can make. It's going to do harm to your body. Perhaps it could. There are a lot of people it has. But still, no one would have the right to tell you that you can't drink. They might say, well, you have to be legal age. But kids buy alcohol all the time out here. They buy it for their parents or buy it for themselves. They get away with it. They can buy cigarettes. I'm not a drinker, but if I wanted to send a kid to the store, hey, give me a bottle of booze and get me a pack of smokes or something, they'll come right back with it. I've done that with the cigarettes. The booze thing, I don't know about that, but small stores, they might be able to get away with that. They're not highly regulated. I mean, it's not like any inspectors coming along and they're watching you and say, did you sell that bottle of Jim Beam to that 12-year-old kid? I mean, nobody's going to say anything. You know what I mean? You got to have the medicine. One trafficker preferred pregnant women because they had money and would always smoke while being weaker in fighting. I don't know what sense that makes at all. If it makes any sense at all. A lot of people will complain about the infrastructure and where's the money going. And, well, higher taxation could mean better infrastructure. That would be true. But can you always trust that the money you're paying on the higher taxes is going to go toward all this embetterment of infrastructure? For example, a lot of excuses if you have to import foods. They're going to raise prices on it. That happened to me even in Hawaii because they had to get a lot of stuff would come from the mainland, right? All right, so a store sells products and they have to charge you X amount of money for each product. But they also have to consider, what did it take to get this product and it had to be shipped over? Okay, we understand that. There's shipping costs and they're going to put it onto you, the consumer. But what they do, they raise the prices way above what it normally would cost for them to, first of all, purchase the product, pay the shipping fees from whether it's overseas or on the mainland, and they would overprice you on that, on what they actually had to really go through to make their profit. The whole idea of business is the profit, but the profit extra. Making a decent profit on a product is seemingly not enough anymore. They want to supersize it, just like McDonald's supersized burgers, supersized drinks. Everything is supersized, super taxes. I know for a damn fact that I've experienced that in Hawaii. I've certainly experienced it here at SNR and places like that. That they really, taxing the shit out of you. Well, actually, what they were charging for their products. And in Hawaii it was the same thing because a lot of stuff came from mainland America, was not either produced in that state. So people say stick to local. You'll pay less with local. But then that's not necessarily true too. They're going to say, well, I see the other store was selling, all right, let's say cigarettes. Well, first of all, it's going to cost them, the store, to buy the cigarettes a little bit more. They gotta put that price on there. It could be any product. Let's say cigarettes, okay. So if it's going to cost more from that company who's supplying them the cigarettes to sell in their retail store, they're going to add the price to you. But sometimes they get a little greedy. And other stores see that other stores are charging more money than they need to for that, say, that pack of cigarettes. They're going to raise their prices too. And they say, well, why can't we profit too? You know, the business next door, they're making a lot of money on this particular product, whatever it might be. And the idea is, well, why shouldn't we do the same thing? Why can't we just raise the price on that? And, these foreigners, well, they figure they got money anyway. Let's, sin tax them to death. Sin tax is that you're white, and that you're a foreigner. Tell me that doesn't happen out here. It does happen out here. Anyway, I'm going to eat something else here, so I'm going to go. I thought I'd bring that up because I was listening to somebody's show earlier today, so I quoted something which made a lot of sense to me. And you can't always win in a situation out here. You're either going to be able to afford to buy the things that you need, and then there's the other thing, the things that you want. So it's going to be more focused on what you need, more so now than what you actually want. Like I always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you need something, and whether it's medicinal or something for your diet, a supplementation, or whatever it might be that's going to better your life or take care of a problem you have, a lot of things are basically band-aids, and that's true, that don't get to the source of what your, I don't know, say your health problem may be or whatever needs you have. But it's better than having nothing. If anybody's ever experienced pain, and most humans do experience pain in some form, sometimes mild, sometimes you might have cancer. I mean, I have other things that don't have to be cancer that are very painful, your joints or whatever it might be. And you shouldn't have to suffer, that's for sure. You should not have to suffer. You shouldn't have to beg a clinic and say, listen, man, this paracetamol, aspirin, or ibuprofen is just not cutting it, doctor. It's just not cutting it. I need something stronger. They're going to tell you, but we can't give you anything stronger. You'll have to be an inpatient at the hospital. It would have to be deemed that you have a need for this, but can only be administered in a hospital. Now, imagine yourself into that situation. Now, when I had, and how long has it been? 5 months or more already? God. When I had a very painful kidney stone situation, it was lodged in the urethra. And I'll tell you what pain is. I experienced that. Really bad shit. Okay. Man, you need help. I'm sorry, like an ibuprofen may help a little bit, but only lasts maybe 2 hours if you're lucky. Oh, take this one. This one's supposed to last good for every 6 to 8 hours. Bull hockey. Uh-uh. some of the things they made me try did not work, or maybe temporarily worked, and boom. But, it's a catch 22. Maybe the ibuprofen, for example, would work for 2 hours, and you say, okay, good. I ease my pain, I can rest, I can relax. Then it wears off. But see, you can't take too much ibuprofen in one day. You're limited to about 1,200 milligrams a day. So if you're taking a pretty basic, I don't know, 400 milligram tablet, you're limited to take 3 a day. But if it's only giving you pain relief for 2 hours, what about the rest of the day? You can't be popping ibuprofen. You just can't be doing that. That's going to really affect your liver. It's kind of a catch-22 on all this. That's what happened with me. That's what happened with me. Ibuprofen or paracetamol or tramadol wasn't doing diddly shit, if it helped at all. So you know damn well when I went to that emergency room with pain, I said, hey man, I just got a really painful situation going on. I can't cope with it. They'll triage you a little bit and tell them what's going on. And they'll come out, they'll come out and right on your wrist, they'll give you a shot of morphine or what's that other drug? It's become a big street drug these days. And you're going to feel that relief. But they're not going to send you home, really, with morphine tablets or something like that. They're always afraid that you're going to be selling it on the streets. And yes, it does happen. But sometimes that's a chance the government has to take. Because maybe these people really need it. Do you want to see people suffering in pain? And I'm going to tell you, right up. In this country, I know that there's a lot of people who are absolutely suffering in horrible pain that can't go and be an inpatient in the hospital because they can't afford it. So they have to just suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer. And that's horrible, but that's why I'm saying, look, any health problem could happen to you at any moment in time, any given moment in time. You can't plan for it. So if you have a painful situation, you're going to need help to control that pain. You're willing to do anything, even if it's addictive. You're willing to take care of that pain because you want relief, and you don't care how you get it. But it gets to the point, you're creating crime if you have to get it on the street because your clinics or hospitals won't give you it to take home. And they're going to tell you, just for their own profiteering. So no, you have to do it in the institution so we could charge you for your time and service in that hospital as an inpatient, not an outpatient. So the hospitals are making pesos one hand over the other. It's a travesty. It's a system that they got going. And it's a horrible system because people do have needs. So you see all the street drugs going on, And they make it a crime. They want to control everything. When in fact, I think the government should make certain products available to anyone who needs it. I think, yes, they should investigate it to see if the person is really having a problem, such as pain, and, did they have trauma, or why did they got pain investigated? Joints, or whatever it might be. Okay. Yeah, of course, investigate it. Do a triage, maybe have a couple of tests done, and they see that, yeah, I could see why this person needs this pain reliever. I could understand it, and they probably are in pretty bad pain. Just be some good guys and say, okay, we'll send you out as an outpatient with this. And to tell you the truth, I think it's limited out here as what they're going to send you home with. And they're basically going to tell you that while you're in our hospital, we will treat you with this, fentanyl. There goes fentanyl. That's the drug I'm talking about. And morphine. We'll treat you while you're here, but once you leave this door, it's kind of like you're on your own. Find another way to find comfort. Yeah, take a fucking aspirin. That ain't gonna work. Then you could understand why these people get all pissed off. As I explained the situation in Hawaii when there was this clinic that had I think it was a front door, busted in by a drug addict who needed the drug for his pain, but he was also going to use the drugs to sell. So there was a criminal element going on there, and there was a need going on. They would take what they need. I've seen this happen all the time out there. It was so prevalent in Hawaii, and especially Seattle. It was very prevalent in Hawaii. And that's why there's street drugs out here. There's a market for drugs in every single country. You go into jail, in a prison, if you got the money, you could probably get anything you want. So drugs are around, just that you're going to have to pay the price for it, a very steep price. And it's expensive enough to get it, legally through a doctor or clinic or hospital, and that's enough what they're charging you already. But to have to buy it on the street, it creates crimes because what's going to happen? They don't have the money to buy that drug. They're going to rip off some stores, okay? They're going to rob people or their houses, jewelry, money to get that drug on the street. So what is the government doing that's really going to remedy that situation? I think they should allow people to take what they feel they need. They know what they need for their body. They know what their problem is. Yeah, I'm not saying to just, buy this and whistle away down the street, I got my drugs. No, you should be tested. They should test people to see what their needs are. And if they establish that this person has a need, if you go to a dentist, for example, and you're going to have a root canal or something, well, first of all, they're going to give you something to numb your mouth. But they know there's going to be some afterwards pain in some cases, okay? Especially if they've done a lot of big old digging in your mouth and gums. You're going to be in pain for a while. You're going to need something to get the inflammation down, and certainly for the pain. And they will give you limited, take this for 3 days. But what if this pain continues? That those 3 tablets, one a day for 3 days to remedy that problem, did not remedy that problem. So that's my point. Point taken, point served. Everybody has their own needs, and it should not be a point where people have to go to what we would deem to be illegal tactics of obtaining certain types of drugs. Now, they're very stringent here in the Philippines, especially after the Duterte administration. People actually turned themselves in fear that maybe they'd be shot and killed by death squads. And that indeed happened. People were thinking, got paranoid. What if somebody finds out I'm doing these drugs, or I get caught selling something? Again, you got people trying to survive. And a lot of people go into selling drugs. Maybe they started off saying, I would never do this. But I got to survive for my family. If I can get a hold of these drugs, I can charge double, triple, quadruple the price, and I can make a living off it. That's what a lot of drug addicts did. They're still doing. The profiteering is going on. They got to live too. Maybe got a debilitating illness and they can't work, and what they're getting from the government is not enough. Some of these people will go to the streets and take to the streets. They want to ease that pain, and they want to ease that unfortunate financial responsibility that you have by having a little extra money, so you get your relief from the pain reliever. You make a little money on top of it to buy your family food, and this is what goes on. And these people started off probably as good people, I'm sure, but they had a need, and the clinics or hospitals were not willing to give in to your need. They were making decisions for you, and you were not allowed to make a decision for yourself on what you felt that you need, not what some doctor is telling you, or a clinic or a hospital. Maybe they're not going through your pain or whatever your particular problem has to be. But government regulations forbid them to give certain drugs, certain classifications of drugs. And they got to follow these laws. And they understand what people are going through. But then you've got a number of doctors and institutions that automatically figure that, we're not going to give you, 60 pills a month or 120 pills a month. We're going to reduce you down to 30. You take one a day. Well, that's not going to work for them. If you've been taking 3 pills a day for a pain reliever, like codeine or something, or hydrocodone or oxycodone or whatever, you know, that's what you need. Your body's actually built up a tolerance. You're going to need those 3 tablets a day. And people who needed the money would go down to 2 tablets or 1 tablet and sell the rest. That's what was going on. Seattle, Hawaii, all over the country, everywhere. That's what was going on. You had a need, but you had a need financially. But if you had to go to the street to buy the drugs, it was going to cost you a hell of a lot more than a regular legal prescription that a doctor would give you, unless you had some kind of insurance that was going to pay for that medication. Well, I think you got my point. Okay, thanks for listening, guys.